Ababa. My mom, one thing that stands out about her character is that she's a no-nonsense woman. She has taught me strength, and I grew up believing being a woman does not hinder me from achieving anything. I still thoroughly believe that because of her, and she's an amazing seven-star cook. I haven't taken after her, unfortunately, but it's not too late. Thank you.
It's never too late, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tigist, for sharing that with us. Finally, our immediate past president is Kevin Kimbio. Over to you, Kevin, to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. Indeed, the one trait that I admire most from my beloved mother is her firmness in the face of adversity. She has shown this particular character in very difficult situations, and I really hope that I do embody it going forward in my life. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that. Absolutely amazing. And what I appreciate about my mother is that she let me do crazy stuff when I was younger. She let me climb trees, teach myself how to ride bicycles down hills, almost break my arms and legs. And that helped me grow up to be a sane adult that you see today. I do not need to do crazy things at this point in my life. And I would like to recognize those of us, those joining us from other clubs or even guests. I see a number of people: Mercy Kangu, Clive Asande, uh, Sajida Master. Please tell us where you're joining us from. We really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Hello, everyone. I am
Hello.
from Toastmaster from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Mhm.
This is Clive Asande from Strathmore Toastmasters. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. David, you had unmuted yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm trying to see if there's another David, but there isn't. I am from Simba Toastmasters Club, and it's my first time at Watabaruku. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you so much, Clive and Sajida, for joining us this evening, and hope you have an amazing time during our meeting. And just a bit of club business before we move on to the meat of our meeting. The minutes of our previous meeting were shared in the club members WhatsApp groups. Are there any amendments that you would like to suggest to them? If there are no amendments, I would like to declare the minutes have been adopted as they were shared in the WhatsApp group. And some other club announcements. We are still going through the renewal season. If you have not renewed your membership at Watabaruku, or even if you are visiting Toastmasters, if you haven't renewed it in your club, please do so. We're going to have our club elections at the end of this meeting. Our members, please let us remain behind to to go through that process. And also, last week we celebrated Watabaruku Advanced for achieving the distinguished status. And even though it hasn't reflected on the dashboard, the Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club has also achieved the select distinguished status. Let's put our hands together for the amazing members and the amazing executive committee of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Clubs who made this possible. Indeed, they've really worked hard to bring this to fruition. Just to remind us, please keep your videos on, especially during the prepared speeches, to offer visual, positive, and supportive feedback to our members. Tonight's meeting is going to be guided by our Toastmaster of the Day, who will lead us through prepared speeches, impromptu speaking, and evaluations, all tied together by our theme of result-based leadership. Our Toastmaster of the Day this evening is our immediate past president, Kevin Kimbio, and who has been a member of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters since 2021. Over the years, He served in various leadership roles, including secretary, treasurer, and most recently in the past Toastmasters year as our president. During his term as president, Watabaruku achieved a significant milestone of elevating its status to become an advanced speaking club, and a number of us are a beneficiary of that amazing transitions. And so let us put our hands together as we bring on to the stage our Toastmaster of the day, Kevin Kimbio. Kevin Kimbio, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that wonderful introduction. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. Welcome to the 135th online experience of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. My name is Kevin Kimbio, and I have the honor and singular privilege of serving as your Toastmaster of the day this evening. Today we gather around a theme that touches every profession, every organization, and every person who has ever been entrusted with responsibility, whether in school, in church, in the office, or even in a volunteer organization such as Toastmasters. This is results-based leadership. In Toastmasters, leadership is not about titles. No. It is not about being president, Toastmaster of the day, or even holding the most visible role in a meeting. No. True leadership here is measured differently. Did the guests feel warmly welcomed? Did the members feel encouraged to participate? Did members leave feeling inspired, valued, and motivated to return? Those are the real moments of truth. Because leadership is ultimately experienced through impact. Point to note, this week in Kenya, many organizations have released their full year results, and we saw growth in revenues, case in point Safaricom, increases in net income and reduction in expenses. It reminded me of a powerful truth. Organizations do not reward activity, they reward outcomes. But one lesson stood out to me even more clearly. Leadership is not measured only by the bottom line performance, but also by how those numbers were achieved. And perhaps that is why Toastmasters remains relevant in the real world. Because here, we do not merely practice speeches, we practice influence. We practice leadership and professionalism under pressure. We practice listening and encouragement. The member who learns confidence here becomes a trusted professional who is trusted to speak in meetings and interviews. The evaluator who learns to correct with empathy here becomes the leader who develops people in the workplace. And the Toastmaster who learns to coordinate meetings here becomes the person trusted to lead teams and projects in the real world. In the end, true results-based leadership is not simply about reaching the destination, it is about character, decision, and impact demonstrated along the journey. Our meeting today will be divided into 3 segments. In the first segment, members will deliver prepared speeches and receive feedback through an audience poll that will be launched by the Sergeant at Arms. In the second segment, Toastmasters and guests will get the chance to practice impromptu speaking. In the third segment, we will listen to triple-tiered, not triple-tired, triple-tiered evaluations and reports from role takers who I will introduce shortly. Allow me now to introduce our role takers of the evening. To start us off is our super grammarian, and this is none other than Paul Muwanga. I asked Paul Muwanga which personal habit has helped him to become more results-driven rather than reactive as a leader. And he told me he endeavors to start each day by identifying the most important tasks to prioritize. This helps him to ensure that important deadlines are not missed. Paul, please introduce your role and the word of the day. Over to you, Paul.
Sorry, can my screen be seen?
Yes, it can,
Yes,
and
Paul.
we can hear you. Continue.
Okay. Now I've lost my layout to full. Okay. Okay, thank you, Toastmasters and guests. As a super grammarian, my role is to listen carefully to everyone who speaks during the meeting, noting improper and excellent use of language, overused words like and, well, so, but, filler or crutch sounds like r, er, repeated words like I, this means, this means. And I will also be listening to the usage of the word of the day. The word of the day today is efficacy. Efficacy is a pronoun and it has a derivative efficacious, which is an adjective. And this word means the ability to produce the desired or intended result. Some examples of the usage of the word. The first is the efficacy of a leader is measured by the results their team delivers. The second one, we evaluated the efficacy of our strategy based on quarterly outcomes. And the third, his leadership style improved the efficacy of the entire department. Whenever somebody uses or mentions the word of the day or its derivatives, please acknowledge them by snapping your fingers or using the hand clap emoji. I will also present brief language evaluations for each speech and give my full report when called upon. Thank you very much. Back to you, TMOD.
Thank you so much, Paul, for that wonderful introduction. We do hope to have a grammatically efficacious meeting this evening. Our second role taker is none other than the founding member of Watabaruku Toastmasters Club, and that is our timer, Alligator Makori. I asked Alligator which personal habit has helped him to become more results-driven rather than reactive as a leader. And this is the answer he gave me. He told me that he runs on stolen sleep and instant decisions. If it lands on his desk, he kills it or delegates it. Reacting is for amateurs. Age has taught him to look after himself. Alligator, please introduce your role.
Thank you. Thank you, Toastmaster of the day. And all that he has said is true. So my role is to keep time. And I will maintain a blue background so you can spot me very easily. The word timer is in the middle, as you can see. And then for all speakers, once you reach your lower time, the attainment of your lower margin, you'll see green. When you reach your target time, you'll see yellow. And when you reach your maximum permitted time, you will see red, and it will remain red until you finish speaking. You have an allowance of 30 seconds. You will see in this the word of the day. Please use it efficaciously. I need not say much else, but we have a long speech today, not the standard 5 to 7 minutes, 18 to 21 minutes. So you'll not see my flags until the 18th minute. That is the target, the lower limit of the time in that particular speech. I will be showing the time taken through the chat, and later on, when given the opportunity, I look forward to giving a very brief report. All speakers will appear in the polls. Only those within the qualifying time will be eligible for awards. So kindly keep within your speaking time. Especially table topic speakers, please make sure that you speak for a minimum of 1 minute so that you can make it to the polls and do not stay your welcome beyond 2.5 minutes. May you enjoy using this time that we have for this meeting, this experience, number 135, efficaciously. Back to you, Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you, Alligator, for that wonderful introduction. Indeed, we hope to have a very timely meeting. Our third role taker is none other than our general evaluator, and this is Evans Odima. I asked Evans the same question, and this is how he responded to it. The habit he has developed is that of carrying out due diligence and thorough assessment of a situation or process to enable him predict a possible outcome and put in place measures to mitigate situations as opposed for waiting to it to happen and then looking for solutions. Sounds like an engineer, right? Welcome, Evans. Briefly introduce your role this evening.
Thank you, Mr. G. And indeed, I'm an engineer, telecommunication engineer. As your G General Evaluator tonight, I will provide an insightful and balanced overview of the meeting, celebrating excellence and identifying opportunities for refinement, thereby reinforcing Watabaruku's legacy of advanced communication and leadership. So at the end of that, I will measure the efficacy of the meeting and give my reports. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Tiamodi.
Thank you so much, Evans, for that wonderful introduction. Indeed, we hope to have a very efficacious meeting this evening. Forwards and onwards, we move to the most interesting section of our tonight's meeting, and this is the prepared speeches. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move to that heart of today's meeting. Tonight's theme reminds us first that results-based leadership is not about appearing busy. It is about being effective. Many people have good intentions, ambitious goals, and strong ideas, but meaningful results only come through consistency, discipline, focus, and execution. And perhaps even more importantly, lasting results are achieved through people. Great leaders know how to communicate clearly, listen actively, and encourage others, and build trust in the process. They understand that influence is more powerful than authority. Whether in families, in workplaces, churches, businesses, or here in Toastmasters, people give their best when they feel valued and inspired. Results-based leadership also demands emotional intelligence and resilience. In Kenya, as most of you know today, many people face a lot of pressure, uncertainty, and setbacks. Yet effective leaders are not those who avoid challenges, but those who remain calm and solution-oriented during difficult times. With this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, let us now begin the prepared speech session. And our first speaker is none other than Tigist Hailu. I asked Tigist the same question, and she said that she prepares to be a results-oriented leader by being thorough in planning and anticipating and preparing to deal with challenges. She will be evaluated by content evaluator David Warui, delivery evaluator Mineh Maina, and language evaluator Paul Muwanga. David, please tell us the objective of Tigist's speech. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Mr. TMD. Good evening once again, Toastmasters and guests. Our first speaker is Tigist Hailu, whom I believe is not a guest to most of you. She will be attempting an elective in level 3 of the visionary communication pathway. This elective is the connecting with storytelling project, and she will be practicing using a story within a speech or giving a speech with a story. She has 5 to 7 minutes to deliver her speech, and the title of her speech is The Perspective You Don't Want But Need. Please help me welcome Tigist, the perspective you don't want but need, the perspective you don't want but need, Tigist Hailu.
Have you ever thought a machete to your neck could cure all of your life's worries? Anyone? Neither did I, until one evening. Some years ago, I was driving home from work. And that evening, when I left work, I was waiting for this email that required a very quick response. So on my drive home, I decided to pull over on the side of the street and check my email quickly. I parked. The area was dark despite the streetlights, but having grown up in Addis and knowing the city to be generally safe, I didn't care much for safety. But unfortunately, I had forgotten to lock my doors. And a minute or two later, I was fully immersed on my phone, reading and responding to that email, when all of a sudden, somebody opened the passenger door, jumped in, and shoved me hard against the driver's seat. Well, when the scare of those initial seconds wore off, and I was aware of my surroundings, I could see a man with wide, bulging eyes staring down at me. And he said, Gel Shallo, which is Amharic for I'm going to kill you. I also noticed that he was holding a machete to my neck. To say I was scared and shocked would be an understatement. But at that odd moment, my dark humor kicked in, and I grinned. I almost felt flattered. A whole machete for me, honestly? He could have just come with his bare hands and still be as effective or efficacious. Seeing that he had full control of the situation and that he had completely caught me off guard, he called for his friend who was on standby by the car to get in the back seat. At that moment, something I could only describe as a divine calm came over me. In hindsight, it must have been my survival instinct. My brain must have done quick math and figured that's the only way it could save me. So I became very calm and started talking to them kindly. I also noticed something. These were 20-something-year-olds, visibly high on something, and not 40 or 50-year-old battle-hardened criminals, because the story could have ended very differently. So I said to them, what happened? What's wrong? Why are you doing this? Oh, but don't worry, I understand. You must be feeling desperate. I have younger brothers like you, so I understand. Speaking to them like that gave me just a little bit of control. And within seconds of getting in, the man in the back seat had finished emptying my purse, and he couldn't see my wallet, although it was right there. And that evening, I had left my laptop in the office. I was also not wearing expensive jewelry, which meant I was a total waste of their time and their machete-wielding drama. So I scooped up a few hundred birrs from my bag, gave it to them, and I said, guys, I'm so sorry. This is all I can offer you today, but don't worry, I'm going to look away. All you need to do is just open the door and run away. I promise you, I'm not going to scream or report you. At that point, the man in front said sternly, no, drive. And he was holding the machete low enough so people outside the car could not tell what was going on. I must tell you, at that point, my panic increased. And the situation also adopted a movie-like quality. There we were, the three of us, one big happy family, driving down the streets of Addis. Cars are passing us on both sides. The city train is operating not too far away. So there were people all around us, but nobody could tell I was driving my kidnappers. My mind was racing, despite the fact that I really tried to be calm. I kept on praying and speaking to them, continued to speak to them calmly. I may have peed on myself a little because, hey, I've never been kidnapped before. After driving for about 500 meters, we reached a part of the street that was pitch dark because the street lights were not working. At that point, I stopped and I told them, guys, I'm so sorry. I have nothing more to offer you today, so you have to leave. It's dark here and nobody can see you, and I promise I'm not going to scream or try and report you. So as soon as I stopped, the one in the back seat bolted, but the one in front lingered. He took his time complimenting me on being one of his most well-behaved victims lately and saying he doesn't mind seeing me again soon on those streets. He also left behind my phone for my good behavior. As soon as he got out, I took off. I drove for about a whole kilometer, just making sure these guys are not going to catch up with me again. And I may have slapped myself just to make sure what I thought I experienced was real. And it was. Now, years later, if you ask me what I remember most about that evening, it wasn't the machete or the fear or the bulging eyes or the threatening words. It was this. Once I had a minute or two to process what happened, and I realized I escaped a dangerous situation, all of my fears and worries I had up to that moment evaporated. Instead of feeling like a victim or feeling anger, I felt a great sense of relief and also a sense that everything is going to be okay, because nothing gives you perspective like when your life is hanging in a balance. But you don't always need a machete to your neck to have perspective. You can always ask yourself, what are the fears and worries that I'm holding on to, which could lose meaning if my life were to be in danger? Funny thing, I still check emails while driving, but now I make sure to lock my doors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tigist, Hailu, for that wonderful speech. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for evidence of results-based leadership and being calm under pressure, this is it. Sergeant at Arms, please launch the audience feedback poll. I will give 1 minute of silence for the audience to give their feedback to Tigist, Hailu.
Audience feedback from on our screens right now. One minute is over.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we now proceed to our second speaker. And our second speaker this evening is none other than our club president, Robert Karanja. When I asked Robert Karanja the same question, he said, looking at the items that he has crossed off his to-do list at the end of every week to make sure that he is constantly making progress. This one never mistakes movement for progress. He will be evaluated by his content evaluator, Sarah Adhiambo. Delivery evaluator will be Maggy, Waithiru. Language evaluator will be Paul Muwanga. Sarah Adhiambo, please tell us the objectives and title of Robert's speech. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This evening, I have the prime pleasure and privilege to evaluate Robert Karanja DTM, a project that he'll be attempting under level 5 of the effective coaching pathways. The specific project is to prepare to speak professionally. The purpose of this project is for Robert to practice developing and presenting a longer speech that should be delivered within 18 to 22 minutes. And the title of his speech is, Do They Believe That You Believe? Do they believe that you believe DTM Robert Karanja?
Imagine you're lost. You're on a hike, on a mountain or in a forest, and it's getting dark. You don't know where you are, and you have no idea how to get out of there. What kind of leader would you choose to lead you in that situation? Would you choose the person who is speaking loudly and talking over everyone, telling them exactly what they need to do in that dangerous situation? Or would you pick the person who keeps walking fast into the darkness, like they know where they are going, so that everybody tries to catch up with them? Whichever leader that you're going to decide to pick is going to be the one that you are most confident is going to get you safely out of that situation. Maybe this example is a bit far-fetched for a lot of us, and so let me give you an example that is closer to home. Think of any leader that you trust, someone who you will go above and beyond for in any kind of situation. Then think of a leader that you don't trust at all. What is the difference between the two of these? For that trusted leader, whether they have the best plan or not, whether they're the most smartest person or not, whether they are the most experienced person that you know, the one thing that I think you could agree with is that you would choose them to be your leader. You would choose to be in their team. If they had a project and you had access to join that project, you would voluntarily go to be part of that team. However, we don't always have that choice of being a leader or being led. So, for example, in a job situation, you get placed in a position of leadership. You get promoted or you get hired, and just like that, you find that you are a leader. However, the problem quickly becomes that just because you have the authority doesn't make you an effective leader. Because you see, most of the time, not just during crisis, but even during normal working days, you need your team to go the extra mile. You need them to go above their job descriptions. You need them to stretch themselves. You need them to do more than they can possibly imagine that they could do. And if you are not a trusted leader, you'll find that you cannot be effective in that situation. And your job probably hangs on the balance on you being able to achieve the goals that you have as a team. Because in the end, you'll find that your best employees end up being volunteers because they can easily get a job somewhere else. But let me tell you how important being trustworthy is. And let us think about what it means to be a leader. Does it mean someone who has the best plan? Because most of the time when you think about the kind of leader that you would like to choose for our nations, you want to choose someone who has the most amazing plan, or the leader of an organization as well. However, if you've ever been in leadership, you realize that having a plan is not the problem. The problem is getting your team to implement it. But even more so, to implement it with passion. You need to influence them to feel something about the vision that you have for that team or for that organization or for that country. And back in the days, people struggled to define exactly what vision, what influence is. In fact, it used to be defined as some invisible liquid that flowed from the stars and affected people. Invisible things that moved people. And when you think about leadership influence, it can feel the same way. Because think about a leader who might walk into a team or walk into a room and everybody immediately pays attention. Everybody immediately wants to do their best to impress them. However, leadership influence is not like magic. For people to be passionate about the plan, they need to believe that you believe in that future that you're selling them. And for them to believe in you, you need to be a trustworthy leader. Because the bottom line is, if people do not trust you, your leadership will not work. And that is the purpose of the next couple of minutes. I would like to take us through the process of how to become more trustworthy leaders. And first, we're going to talk about how to define our values so that people know exactly what we believe. Then we're going to talk about how to think about our priorities, our day-to-day, to make sure that we're actually living out those values. And finally, we'll talk about how to make sure that our interactions with our team members reflect the things that we believe, and we turn our individual values into shared values. So let us start off with your values. One of the best descriptions of values is fundamental attitudes guiding our mental processes and behavior. And the thing about values is that they can be unconscious. We can have values that we actually don't know and other people around us do not know. And so we might say we believe one thing, but work in a different way. And so we end up being inconsistent. And so our team members stop trusting us, and we become confusing, not just to ourselves and also our team members. It can feel like there are these things controlling us in the dark. However, when we clarify our values, we find that those values become the things that are holding up our leadership. So how do you clarify your values and then start speaking about them so that people know exactly what you believe? There are three questions that you can ask. Ask yourself, what are you frustrated about? Because most of the time when you're frustrated about something, it means there is a value being violated. Then ask yourself, what kind of person or leader do you look up to? What person do you admire? They have values that you respect. And finally, ask yourself, when are you most proud of your work? Because when you're proud of your work, it means that you have exemplified a particular value, and that is a value that you aspire to. And when you answer all of these questions, you're able to speak about, people start understanding exactly what you believe. But that is the first step. The main problem is actually living out those values. Because think about it, if one of the values that you determined was having integrity, practicing integrity can seem like a daunting task. It means that you need to have integrity every single minute. However, when you reflect on the meaning of the word practice, you realize that it is actually achievable for you as a leader. Because practice can mean two things. It can mean something that you do regularly in your day-to-day life. So if you practice yoga, it means that every other day or every day you do something related, you go through some yoga routine. Or it could mean something you do over and over to improve. So if you're practicing, a musician is practicing an instrument, they are working on it, playing it regularly to get better. So when you're practicing your values, rather than thinking about perfection, think about consistency and constant improvement. And how do you do this? You look at what you talk about all the time. Think about the emails, the phone calls that you have, the meetings that you have. What keeps coming up? Because the thing that a leader speaks about ends up being the highest priority thing for the team members. Then look at your calendar. Think about if someone was to follow you for the next 1 week. What exactly are the values that you are modeling? If you say that you believe in innovation, that is one of your values, are you engaged in activities that are innovative or that promote innovation in your organization? And finally, think about the kind of feedback that you want. Because if you believe something is important, you constantly want to get better at it. And so what do you constantly measure? What feedback do you ask from people around you? What kind of guidance do you seem to desire the most from everybody around you? And when you find that the way that you talk to people, the way that you spend your time, and the way that you look for feedback around you, if all of these are aligned with your value, then you are living out those values and you start becoming the kind of leader that people can trust. And you find that those values can withstand moments of pressure, because that is exactly what your followers are looking out for. How do you react when you are under pressure? One of my favorite movies is The Long Walk to Freedom, featuring Idris Elba, where he is portraying Nelson Mandela. And there's a scene where he's under pressure. He goes to a TV station. But leading up to that, there had been negotiations, and it had become clear that South Africa was going to have democratic elections, and a black government, a black South African government, was going to be elected into power. But that clarity about the outcome of those elections did not mean clarity about the future, because there were different groups of people who wanted control of that new order. There were people who had been hurt in the past, and so the people were wondering, would these people look for retributions in the future? And even Nelson Mandela himself, at some point in the past, he used to advocate for violence, and that is how he started his stint, a 27-year period in jail. And so there was violence around that election that threatened the legitimacy of it. And so in the scene that I love, Nelson Mandela goes to a TV station and tells his followers that they are wrong, that their behaviors are not living up to the values of democracy. And you see, here is where leadership comes in, because Nelson Mandela had shared his values and he had demonstrated that he actually believed them. His followers believed them. They believed in the election process, and the election went through. Because when you think about it, as a leader, it is not enough for you to privately believe something. The people around you, the followers, your team needs to actually believe them. Your individual values need to turn into shared values. And this brings us to the third way that you can become a more trusted leader. And that is by reinforcing shared values. First of all, is through recognition. One of the most powerful things about leadership is that what gets rewarded gets repeated. And so if you say that you value team collaboration, but yet you keep rewarding individual performance, then your team is going to realize that nobody needs to work together. If you say that you value customer service, but then you prioritize the speed of delivering that service, then there's a clear message that you're sending to your team. And so by being intentional about the things that you recognize, you are going to reinforce the values that you'd like them to follow. But that's not the only way. The other way that you can reinforce shared values is through stories. What stories do is they turn things that are written in mission statements into real life. When people hear of people actually living out the value of integrity, they realize that it is possible. They see how exactly it can happen. And in addition to that, stories are particularly important when you have a geographically spread team, so that those stories can be transmitted from one place to another, so that people know that in this other place, they are living out these team values. In addition to that, the values can also be transmitted over time, so that when people join your team, when they leave, based on the value, the stories that you keep telling, the people know exactly what is expected of them being members of your team. And so with those three things, talking about clarifying your values and then talking about them, doing them so that they can show up in your time, in your conversation, in what you seek feedback, and also in the way that you transmit them to your team through the interactions that you have with them, you will find that you grow in trust, and they start to believe your word, and they start to give more of themselves whenever they are interacting with you. However, all of this that we've talked about so far takes you being intentional. And something that you can consider doing right now is to, first of all, think about two values that you would like to be known for, and write them in your own words. So for example, if you'd like to be known for integrity and accountability and customer service, write down exactly what does integrity mean to you? What does accountability means to you? What does customer service mean to you? Then think about how you're going to bring them into practice. What do you constantly talk about, reinforce, or what do you talk about, reinforce? Then if someone follows you, what will they see you prioritizing based on your to-do list or by your calendar? And then what behavior do you reward or highlight or praise? And then after you've gone through all that, the final step is where are you inconsistent and what can you do to get better? Then start the cycle right from the beginning, up over and over. Like we said, practice is consistency and working towards improving yourself. Over the next 1 week, people are going to experience your leadership. It's not going to be based on what you say. It's not going to be based on what your ideas. It's not going to be based on some thing about how you would like them to perceive you. They're going to experience your leadership based on how you behave. And they're going to be asking themselves one question, and they're going to get that the answer to that question is that do they, your followers, believe that you, the leader, believe in what you say? And when you define and articulate the values that you believe in, analyze what you're prioritizing and reflect and make sure that your values are reflected in your actions, and identify opportunities where you can reinforce the team's value. You'll find that more and more they're going to believe that you believe. And when they believe that you believe, they are going to give more of themselves, and they are going to be able to achieve much, much more than they thought was possible. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert, for just a second. Thank you so much, Robert, and congratulations on that wonderful speech. Indeed, that particular speech comes very timely as a masterclass on trustworthy leadership. Those were 18 to 22 minutes well spent learning how to clarify our values. Thank you so much for that speech. Sergeant at Arms, please launch the Better Speaker poll. I will allow 30 to 45 seconds for the Better Speaker poll. Thereafter, you will launch the audience feedback poll to to the second speaker, that is Robert Karanja. And I will allow 1 minute of silence for that poll. Evaluators also take note. For the purposes of saving time, we will be skipping the table topic session and we will be moving to the evaluation session. Thank you, Madam Sergeant at Arms. I believe you may now launch the audience feedback poll that the audience may now give feedback to the second speaker who has just given us a keynote speech, that is Robert Karanja.
1 minute is up, but we'll continue to display until the next session. Continue, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you so much, Sergeant at Arms, for that guidance. Ladies and gentlemen, powerful leadership is not built through praise alone. It is built through feedback, reflection, and continuous improvement. One of the greatest strengths of Toastmasters is that every speech becomes an opportunity for growth through evaluation. Tonight's speakers have shared their ideas, experiences, and insights with courage and preparation. I think that was absolutely evident. It is now time for our evaluators to help them to transform those speeches into even greater future performances. And to start us off, will be the evaluation of the first speaker, who is Tigist Hailu's speech. A content evaluator is David Warui, who will then hand over to Maina, who will invite Paul to give the language evaluation, who will then hand over back to me. David Warui told me that the habit that's made the biggest difference for him is starting each day with a brief planning session. Just 10 to 15 minutes where he identifies one or two outcomes that he absolutely needs to move forward that day. Before he built this particular habit, he was essentially letting his inbox and other people's urgencies to set his daily agenda. He was busy, but not necessarily productive. He was reacting and not leading. Maina told me that one personal habit that has helped her to become more results-driven rather than reactive as a leader is being intentional in weekly planning and prioritization. At the beginning of each week, she takes time to review key objectives, performance metrics, and team priorities. This habit has helped her to focus on high-impact activities rather than responding to immediate issues. By proactively setting clear goals, anticipating potential challenges, and aligning the team around measurable outcomes, she is able to guide the team towards results, minimizing firefighting, and over time, this practice has improved her decision-making and consistency of the team's performance. I think both agree that to become efficacious, one must not be a servant of exigency. Over to you, David Warui, for your content evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. TMD. Storytelling is part of our daily lives. And today, Tigist has shown us the efficacy of storytelling when it comes to communication. Right from the title, the perspective you don't want but need. You hooked us. You invited us to listen to you. And what a good title does is that it goes before you and it sets the mood for you because your audience is already eager to listen to you. You're no longer trying to win us and invite us to listen to you. You've already hooked us from the beginning with your title. I love that about your speech. The second thing that I loved about your speech is on the flow and structure of your story. A good story has three parts: the introduction, the conflict, and the action. The introduction is where you give us the setting of your story. From you, I could see the street in Addis Ababa. I could see you parking your car looking at your email. That is the setting. I can find the characters in your story from the introduction. Then there is the conflict, which is what happens that is unexpected, like the person entering your car. And then finally, there is the action, which is the resolution, and it is how you were kidnapped and you were able to escape that moment. That is an amazing flow and structure to a story, and I could get it from the story that you gave us. The other thing I loved about your story is on your visual detail and the way you were able to connect with us emotionally. I am sure all of us were in high tension when we were listening to your story, how you were kidnapped, how you were driving down the street with panic in your heart. We could see the way you described even the pitch dark street. We could see you describe the bulging eyes of the person that kidnapped you. We were able to be transported all the way to that moment that you were kidnapped, and we could feel that tension and fear with you in the way you described that situation. And then the fourth thing that I loved about your speech is on your humor that you infused within the tension in your story. For example, when you asked, "A whole machete for me?" And also when the kidnapper said, you are his most well-behaved victim and that he hopes to see you again. That is amazing humor. And within all that context of tension, it releases that tension a little bit and we can be able to further connect with you. One area that I would love to see you improve on to build on more efficacy on your speech is on building on the internal monologue, especially when during that period when you were kidnapped. Your story is about the perspective that we lose when we are in a moment where we don't have to really think about anything else apart from our lives. I would have loved for you to describe these things that you lost perspective of because they didn't matter to you anymore. I would have loved to see you describe, I couldn't think about that email anymore. All those things would have come out very well if you build more on them. Overall, I loved how you hooked us from the beginning and you transported us all the way to Ethiopia and you were able to come out with a great lesson from that story. And you left us with a very provocative thought. What will we lose? What would lose meaning if a machete was held on our necks? Thank you. And I pass it on to Mineh.
Tigist, I loved your speech. On delivery, I will be looking at the physical aspects of the speech, which constitutes the appearance and the body language of the speaker. There is another aspect of the voice where I was checking the flexibility, the volume, the rate, and the inflection. I was looking at the platform style as well, which is directness, assurance, enthusiasm, effective use of visual aids and props. I loved the lighting in your room. It was adequate and not sharp to our eyes. And we could see your whole torso, which helped us to see your upper body gestures. Like when you said wide bulging eyes and you leaned in so that we could now see this person was over your window. When you also told us you were looking away so that the people could disembark from your car. Your background was also easy to the eye. It was pitch friendly. There was no distraction. And your camera was placed at a comfortable level. Your body language, which constitutes to 55% of speech delivery, was effective. I would also like to talk about your platform, which used a phone as a prop. In your speech, there was enthusiasm, and we could follow your speech through and through. There was humor. A whole machete just for me? And the compliments from the attacker for behaving well. I would have liked to challenge you because your title had a machete in it. If you would have had a handmade maybe, or anything that looked like a machete on your neck, that would have brought the picture home. On the voice, there was monotone. I would like to challenge you to work on your 4 Ps, which are the pitch, the pace, the power, and pauses. For example, you could have used different voice ranges for you and for the men, so that now we know you're my well-behaved victim of late. I'm sorry, guys. I know you're desperate. Then we could differentiate and we can see who is talking at this point. You would also have used different hands for when you wanted to say, is it machete or is it fear? All in all, I would like to thank you for delivering your speech, and I will pass over the mic to Paul Muwanga.
Thank you very much, DTM Mineh. Toastmasters Tigist, I listened carefully to your speech, some of the things have been spoken about, but I liked, most importantly, your clarity. I did not pick any words that were not, or that I could not understand. And I felt that I kept flowing and I was able to follow through your speech. There was just one not grammatical error, but I felt that it's something you would look at, where you said, one evening I left work, and then you continued and said, that evening as I went home. So you could have just put it one, that when I left work on my way home, then it would have been nice. But interestingly, I liked your use of other words which were giving very nice, vivid pictures. For example, machete wielding drama. And also where you mentioned that the man at the back bolted and the one in the front lingered. And lastly, where you talked about fear evaporating. All in all, I liked your use of the language, and I would encourage you to continue to do so as you work on just that one issue, just to make sure that you follow it through. Well done on your speech. Back to you, TMOD.
Thank you, our team of evaluators. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mineh. Thank you, Paul, for your insightful evaluations. I am certain that once Tigist does implement these very insightful suggestions, she will not only be Addis's most well-behaved victim, she will also be one of Addis's best speakers. Forwards and onwards, we move to the second set of evaluators. And to evaluate Robert's speech, we shall start with Sarah Adhiambo for content evaluation, who will then invite Maggy Waithiru for delivery, who will then invite Paul Muwanga for language evaluation. Sarah Adhiambo told me that the personal habit that has helped her to become more results-driven than reactive as a leader is intentionality. She plans ahead, anticipates outcomes, and asks, what result am I actually driving toward? Instead of just reacting to whatever is loudest in the moment. Turns out calendars, quiet thinking time, and a good cup of tea solve more leadership problems than panic ever will. Tell that to Tigist. Maggy told me that one habit that she does is journaling. She reflects on issues, brainstorms in her head, picks the lessons. Through journaling, she has also learned to embrace life, to forgive and let go. Over to you, Sarah, to commence Robert's evaluation.
DTM Robert Karanja, I wish to extol you for such a consummate presentation that truly embodies the tenets of a well-structured speech, which are to, in the introduction, mention what you want to say, in your body say it, and in your conclusion, repeat what you just said. Right from the opening, Robert, you captured our attention with a compelling scenario. Imagine you are lost in a high mountain or deep forest. What kind of a leader would you choose? A trusted leader or not? Instantly, I knew your speech was all about leadership, and as you went on, specifically the importance of building trust. That is the hallmark of a strong opening. It introduces the subject while emotionally engaging the audience. Congratulations, DTM Robert, for that. In your body, you went ahead and beautifully broke the 3 memorable pillars of how to build trust by clarifying your values, practicing those values consistently, and reinforcing those values with intentionality. And in each and every one of your main points, you backed them up with poignant evidence that helped us to visualize what it actually takes for us to be able to achieve all these points that you are trying to bring out. What made your speech even more effective, Robert, is when you went ahead towards the end, especially, and took us back memory lane by referencing the Long Walk to Freedom movie where Nelson Mandela is a protagonist, where he was disappointed that his foot soldiers were not practicing the values that he hoped they would be able to pick from him. Well done for that, Robert. And in the end, you gave us a call to action and said that you hope we can pick at least 2 values, write them down in our words, and then start to have an action plan on how we implement these values. So when it comes to following the tenets of a well-structured speech, that was very well done. What would I have liked to see you deliver differently, or what content would I have liked to see in this particular speech, DTM Robert? For those of us who have been around the block for the while that you also have, we all know that DTM Robert has served in almost all expo positions at the club level, in the district leadership, from an area director, division director, past district director. I would have liked to see you lace your story with your personal anecdotes, Robert, and your own experiences, especially during this time when we are moving into club elections and transitioning into new leadership, so that anybody who may be struggling or is looking forward to being encouraged would be able to pick 1 or 2, 3 things from your experience as a trusted leader, because we all trusted you when you took up all these positions, Robert. All in all, this was a strong, well-structured and inspiring speech with a clear message, excellent organization, and going forward, I'd like to hear more of your personal stories and anecdotes to make this even more impactful and relatable. I now hand over to Maggy Waithiru with the rest of the evaluation.
Robert, it's always such a joy when I see your name on the list. To listen to you is always encouraging. I admire you as a leader, and you did not disappoint today. You owned the virtual space. I don't know if most of you know in this room how hard it is to command a virtual space. It's so much harder than in person, and you did that very well, Robert. You stood there, and I could imagine you were standing with your feet apart. You owned the space, and that is a sign that you know what you're talking about and you're very confident in your topic. Fantastic. You used your gestures intentionally. Whatever point you were making, you used your hands. Yet, I feel it was a topic that it's not easy to imagine how I would use gestures if I was talking about being a trusted leader. But there you are. You did a fantastic job in that to elucidate your message. Your voice was audible. Remember the other day I was asking you, what do you use? What are the mics that you use? Because you're always so clear in a meeting. And even today, you were very audible. There is nothing that we missed. And you spoke with passion. You spoke about a topic which obviously speaks to your heart. Clearly, you're a leader through and through. Your speech also had very clear transitions from each point, from one point to the other, from one slide to another, very clear. Your style of as an enthusiastic speaker was clear from the beginning all the way to the end when you were leaving us with a call to action. I loved your visual aid, which was obviously the presentation that went in very smoothly. It wasn't wordy. You did not kill us with PowerPoint, either in the number of slides or whatever was in the slides. It was clear and succinct, to the point. I can almost see everything that you shared with us today, which is remarkable. It's not always easy to achieve that, especially when you have such a long speech. One of 2 areas that I would recommend you consider for improvement: when you have 2 videos, it can be very distracting. That is the disadvantage of having fancy gadgets, because there was one video of you here and one video of you here. I'm wondering, now which one am I supposed to look at? So you can see how to play around with that so that I can focus a lot more on the slide and just one of you. I also think you could work a little bit more on tonal variation, Robert. When you were talking about, for example, when you were talking about the long walk to freedom, how could you think of a dialogue that you can throw in there that can help us hear your variation in your tone? All in all, you are a remarkable speaker. I cannot wait to hear you speak again in future. Over to you, Paul Muwanga.
Thank you very much, Robert. Just like Tigist, I enjoyed your speech. There was a nice flow of language throughout your presentation, and I could clearly follow. I did not pick any inconsistencies of grammar or anything like that. I was happy to listen, and there was clarity, no words that were not clear to me. I particularly liked a few phrases that you used. For example, when you said what gets rewarded gets repeated. It's very nice for leadership to encourage consistency. You also looked at people and then said, when you're talking about values, believe in what you do and also believe in what you say, so that people can then follow you, which was very nice. I just picked just one phrase that I may look at when you said that when the elections, you said the elections went through, when you're talking about Nelson and the fear of the speech, then you said the elections went through. I would maybe suggest you'd have used that the elections were held. Overall, very nice command of the language, very nice ways of painting pictures for us to be able to follow your speech. And I look forward to your next speeches in future. Back to you, TMOD.
Thank you so much, Sarah, Maggie, and Paul, for that consummate, efficacious, and cogent evaluation that was very well elucidated. All these new words, big words I have learned during these evaluation sessions. I believe that as Robert implements this, will amplify his message on trustworthy leadership and cure this particular pandemic that we face of trust deficit. Sergeant at Arms, please launch the best evaluator poll as we prepare to go to our next session to receive the reports. After a minute, you will notify me that I may launch the next session. Thank you. As you keep on voting, allow me to just mention a few common pitfalls to avoid when it comes to result-based leadership. Result-based leadership shifts focus from what leaders actually do to what they actually deliver. These are the outcomes. It is the difference between being a hard worker and being an effective producer. And there are three common pitfalls that I would wish to reiterate once again that you avoid in order to become an efficacious result-based leader. And the first trap is the activity trap. This is where you confuse a full calendar with a productive day. Like Robert told us, do not confuse movement for progress. The second pitfall to avoid is result at any cost. This is where the leader focuses on hitting the numbers while destroying the team culture. And the third pitfall to avoid is having vague goals. That is using corporate speak. For example, we need to synergize our excellence instead of clear and actionable, easy to understand targets.
Master of the day, 1 minute is over.
Thank you so much, our Sergeant at Arms. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key hallmarks of a true leader is humility. Every Toastmasters meeting has 3 people who ensure that we remain humble. And to start up the report section will be our super grammarian. Over to you, Paul, our super grammarian.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the day. I'll begin with the usage of the word of the day. The word was used 7 times by 4 speakers. I did not pick any filler words or overused words. I also, because we were very few people speaking, I also did not pick words from the
Paul, Muwanga, you are
You're
on mute.
speaking on mute.
My apologies. Apologies. Yes, I said the word of the day was used 7 times by 4 speakers. I did not pick any filler words or repeated words. From the other speakers, from the TMOD, I picked the phrase that leaders are not evaluated based on activity. They are evaluated based on outcomes. And Sarah praised DTM Robert for extolling her with such a consummate speech. And I also picked from Toastmaster Sarah that DTM Robert had points backed with poignant evidence. And he also took us back to memory lane. Those are the words I picked. Thank you very much, TMOD. Back to you.
Thank you, our super grammarian Paul Muwanga, for that wonderful report. At this point, I would like to invite our general evaluator to tell us how our meeting has been this evening. Over to you, Evans Odima.
Thank you, Mr. Timothy. I have a very detailed report here, but I'll be keeping it short as requested to allow the club run its club election. So let's brush through, give a brief version of my report. I'll start with preparation. All roles were indeed filled in good time. The agenda and word of the day was shared early. Speakers and functionaries did respond to the theme question. There was a pre-meeting setup. Guests were welcomed warmly. There was also a very engaging virtual game that was carried by dear SA. So I believe the areas that the club excelled in, the pre-meeting, there's a pre-meeting that was carried out 2 days ago. That is very unique. I've never seen it done at any other club. That was wonderful. I've already mentioned about the pre-meeting done today to allow guests and role takers to check their mics, videos, and also participate in the virtual game. The presiding officer did start on time, with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, wonderful introduction of the expo, plus succinct mention of club business. The word of the day display on the timers card, that was a very brilliant idea to remind speakers and other participants to use the word of the day throughout the meeting. Areas that I believe the club can work on. I'll go to evaluation. I think this is a mistake that most evaluators do. When carrying out evaluation is not just for the speakers. It is for all participants in the meeting, and because this meeting link video is also going to be shared with other Toastmasters, the evaluation is also for the purpose of other Toastmasters. So when you speak directly to the speaker as an evaluator, other members or other participants of the meeting, they disengage immediately. So I think as you are giving evaluation, please also put it in a way that engages the audience. The TMOD started off with video. I believe that was an issue with technology. He had logged in with two devices. This can be rectified with a pre-meeting run. They say encourage us to have our videos on, but she had us off all through the meeting immediately after she gave the protocol of the meeting. I think we need to lead by example. There was a request for digital timer to be up. I think that fell on deaf ears. Next time that can be done to actually assist the speakers and other participants to keep abreast of time. As I said, the report is detailed, but I'll be sharing the detailed version with the club later on. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. TMD.
Thank you so much, our general evaluator, Odima. Thank you so much, our super grammarian, Paul Muwanga, for your comments. Indeed, we have taken all that you have shared with us this evening with a lot of seriousness, and we hope that going forward, we are going to improve in the next meetings that follow this. Okay. Next slide, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight reminded us that leadership is not measured by titles, appearances, or activities alone. True leadership is measured by outcomes, by growth, by impact, and by the ability to positively influence others. We learned that results come from consistency, discipline, and execution, that being busy is not the same as being effective. Every role taker, every evaluator, every speaker, and every participant tonight demonstrated that leadership in Toastmasters is not about commanding attention. It is about creating value. Because every speech delivered, every evaluation given, and every role performed contributed to the outcome greater than the individual. And that is the true spirit of Toastmasters. As we leave tonight, may we remember, results-based leadership is not simply about achieving results for ourselves. It's about leaving others better, stronger, and more empowered because of our influence. Thank you for being part of the 135th online experience of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. And with that said and done, I'd like to hand the meeting over back to the presiding officer, the club president, Robert Karanja. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day, immediate past President Kevin Kimbio, for that amazing meeting. Let us put our hands together. Let us use our emojis to show him our appreciation. Thank you so much for those lessons. Thank you so much for refocusing our minds as leaders to help us be better in terms of focusing on the results. And thank you so much to every role taker and to all the speakers this evening and to everyone who attended our meeting. And just before we go to the closing, I would like to announce the results of the polls. So best evaluator this evening, drum rolls, DTM, Mineh, Maina, congratulations. And the best speaker, drum rolls, Tigist, Hailu. Congratulations, Tigist, on your amazing speech. Once again, to recognize our newest member, Anthony Odwor, thank you so much for joining our Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. I hope that you find a home here. I hope that you are going to experience tremendous growth over the next couple of months. And thank you so much for being a part of us. If you'd like to join Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club, please reach out to our VPM, Gilbert Rutememberwa. And if you'd like to take a role, please reach out to our VPE, Kevin Rubia, DTM. And now I would like to give an opportunity to just two of our guests, maybe Sajida and Clive. Please tell us what you thought of our meeting. We would really like to hear your feedback and whether you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, DTM, Robert. This was the first time for me to attend an advanced Toastmasters, and I'm looking forward to more meetings. This has been very insightful, and I really enjoyed the evaluations. So you'll see more of me there. Over to you.
Thank you so much. We hope to see more of you in future. Thank you so much for joining us, Clive.
Thank you, DTM Robert. Indeed, this is not my first time. I think the last meeting I gave a speech, and ever since I'm hooked, I'm addicted. So I hope you'll accommodate me going forward as not a guest, but a friend to the club. But all in all, it was a pleasure. I've really learned a lot today. And for that speech for 18 minutes, I don't know how you do it. I hope that one day I'll be able to deliver the same. But always a pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that feedback. Yeah, thank you so much for continuing to visit us. Definitely, you are a friend of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. And finally, a big thank you to all our members, visitors, and visiting Toastmasters leaders for making time to be with us this evening. Our next meeting is going to be on the 22nd of May, the same time, same place. Is going to be online. We hope to see every one of you. And at this point, we'd like to transition to the club elections, and guests, please feel free to remain with us. And so, yeah, let me move to my election chair script. So first of all, before we proceed, I would like to confirm that we do have quorum to have this election. First up, we have 12 paid-up members of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. There are 10 members who are present in this meeting. For us to have a meeting with the quorum that we need to have the elections is 50% plus 1, and that means 7 members. We have 10 members present, and so we are above the quorum that we need to have the election. And first of all, before I go into the election, just to go over briefly the roles of the different executive committee members. We have the club president, who's the chief executive of the club and is responsible for the club's overall operation. The president presides at meetings, guides the club through the Distinguished Club program, meets regularly with club officers, and works closely with the area director to coordinate goals. The Vice President Education, this officer helps members progress in their educational journey by scheduling meeting roles and signing off on completed projects. VPEs facilitates new members' orientation and assign mentors. The Vice President Membership, this officer focuses on building club membership. They greet visitors, provide them with information packs, and plan outreach activities, for example, open houses or community events to attract visitors. The Vice President Public Relation, this officer establishes and maintains the lines of communication between the club and its members, as well as between the club and the public. The Secretary, the club secretary manages all the club records and correspondences, including membership attendance, supply, orders, office lists, past club records, and meeting minutes. The treasurer manages the club financial health by collecting dues, paying bills, and tracking financial status. The sergeant at arms addresses meeting logistics, including meeting room reservation and meeting setup, and the Zoom overall. And so those are the list. We shared the list of nominated members of our club who would like to run for these positions. And since we shared them in the previous meeting before the election, that list is valid. And the way I'm going to go through the election process is I'm going to start with the president and go down to the office of the to the office of the sergeant at arms. And the way I'm going to do it very briefly, I'm going to state the nomination that we got from the club leadership committee. Ask for an optional speech from members to second the nomination. So if anybody wants to really speak and promote the candidate, they are going to speak on their behalf. Ask the nominee to speak on their own behalf if they would wish to. And then I'll call for the close of the nomination by are voting on a motion. And so to close the nomination, I'll simply ask for consent from the members. As long as we all consent to close that nomination for that specific office, we'll close, and then we will cast the ballot if there are more than one people, if there's more than one person nominated for the office. I hope that is clear. Is that clear to all of us? Excellent. Okay, we'll start with the office of the president and the club leadership committee nominated for the club president for the year 2026-2027, DTM Kevin Rubia. Just a second. I'll give an opportunity. Is anybody, first of all, let me first of all confirm that he accepts the nomination. Dr. Kevin Rubia, do you accept the position if elected?
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to deliver a seconding speech? It will also be a hand clap. Yes, Kevin Kimbio. You have no more than 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. Definitely, I do support the candidacy of Kevin Rubia to be president for Tabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. He has demonstrated results-based leadership, and I am certain that as he takes over the reins of leadership, as he succeeds yourself as president, he will uphold the very high standards that you have enshrined in the club, and we will only soar to the next level. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, immediate past president Kevin Kimbio. At this point in time, because there are no additional nominations, I would like to entertain, I would like us to close the nominations for the office of the club presidents. Are there objections to us closing those nominations? There being no objections, the nominations for the office of the club president are now closed. And Dr. Kevin Rubia being the only member who has been nominated to this position, I now duly declare that he has been elected to the position of club president. Congratulations, DTM Kevin Rubia. All right, very good. I hope we've seen how it goes. We are going to go through the rest of the positions really quickly. The next position we're going to vote on is the position of the club vice president education, and the club leadership committee nominated one candidate, Fatma Amio. Fatma, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. If elected to the position of club vice president, are you willing to serve in that position?
I would be honored to serve in the position of Vice President Education.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to ask, is there anybody who would like to offer a seconding speech? And I will, because there's only one candidate, I'll also combine. If Fatma, you would like to speak for yourself, you may also speak.
I second. I believe we will be in very good hands with Fatma. Thank you, Fatma.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, DTM Maggy. Thank you so much, Paul. And now I would like to close the nominations for the office of the club vice president education. Are there any objections to this? There being no objections, I declare the nominations for the position of club vice president education closed. And Fatma Amio being the only member who has been nominated to this position, I therefore declare Fatma Amio to have been elected to the position of the Club Vice President Education for Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. Congratulations, Fatma. Next, we go to the position of the Club Vice President Membership, and the Club Leadership Committee nominated Kevin Kimbio for this position. Kevin, if elected to this position, are you willing to serve as the club's Vice President Membership?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody who's willing to speak on his behalf? Or Kevin Kimbio, if you'd like to speak on your own behalf, this is the time. Yes, Ali?
Hope I've unmuted now after a little bit of drama there. Our having Kevin Kimbio as one of the earliest members of this club as our vice president membership will certainly be a position that will be placed in the very best hands. His passion, his leadership as a former president and effective president of this club already shows. So I wholeheartedly endorse this election into office of Toastmaster, almost DTM, Kevin Kimbio.
Thank you so much, for that. At this point in time, I would like to close the nominations for the office of the club vice president membership. Are there any objections to this? There being no objections, I declare the nominations for the office of the club vice president membership closed at this point. And Kevin Kimbio being the only candidate that has been nominated, I duly declare that Kevin Kimbio has been elected to the position of club vice president membership for Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. I'll move on to the position of Club Vice President Public Relations, and the Club Leadership Committee nominated Sarah Wanjiku to this position. Sarah, would you be willing to serve in the position of Vice President Public Relations if elected to this position?
It will be my honor, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Sarah to second the nomination, or Sarah, you may also speak on your own behalf? Yes, Ali?
I think she perfectly fits this bill. Even if you look at her face, it just looks like PR. And I'm sure it will be magnetic and she will make the fame of our club go far and wide. And in support with the VPM, we will definitely rise, keep on rising.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ali, for that. Absolutely. And at this point, I would like to close the nominations for the Club Vice President Public Relations. For the office of the Club Vice President Public Relations, are there any objections to this? There being no objections, the nominations for the Club Vice President Public Relations are closed. And Sarah Wanjiku being the only candidate nominated to this position, I declare that she has been duly elected. I didn't want to second her before I declared she's elected, but we really do appreciate her serving in both the positions of the secretary and the treasurer in this past year. It really meant a lot to us as members of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club, and definitely shows her dedication to the club. And we are confident that she's going to serve outstandingly in the position of the Vice President Public Relations. Next, we go to the position of the club secretary, and for this position, the club leadership committee nominated DTM Maina. DTM Maina, are you there? Would you serve in the position of the secretary if elected?
Yes, I will be honored to.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of DTM Maina, or Maina could also speak on her own behalf?
I can speak on her behalf and say thank you very much to her for accepting the nomination. I'm sure she will do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DTM Maggy, for that endorsement. I would now like to close the nominations for the position of the club secretary. Are there any objections to this? There being no objections, and I close the nominations for the position of the club secretary. And DTM Mineh Maina being the only candidate nominated to this position, I duly declare her to be elected to be the club secretary of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. Congratulations. Next, we move on to the position of club treasurer, and the club leadership committee nominated DTM Maggy Waithiru to this position. DTM Maggy, would you be willing to serve in this position if elected?
Indeed, it will be an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to second DTM Maggy's nomination, or Maggy can also speak on her own behalf?
I have
Yes,
seen how dedicated Maggy was during her VPPR role. I am sure she will deliver on the treasurer's role.
Thank you. Absolutely. Ali?
DTM Maggy has distinguished herself as a very dependable, not only member of Watabaruku Advanced, but any endeavor that she has undertaken. We could definitely not put our money in better hands. So she will continue with this fantastic tradition that we've had of very effective club treasurers.
Thank you so much, DTM Mineh and Ali, for those remarks.
Can I add, please? Can I add, please? Yes. Actually, she has been like a co-treasurer, so I really appreciate you, Maggy, for making me look good. But behind the scenes, you are the one doing most of the work. Thank you so much for holding my hand, and I'm sure you do amazing in this role.
Thank you so much. And at this point in time, I would like to close the nominations for the position of the club treasurer. Are there any objections? There being no objections, I declare that the nominations for the position of the club treasurer are now closed. And DTM Maggy being the only candidate nominated to this position, I duly declare that she has been elected to the position of club treasurer. Congratulations. And finally, the club by Sergeant at Arms, the club leadership committee nominated Catherine Bosibori Aruyaru. Catherine, are you present? Yes, she is. Are you willing to serve in this position if elected?
Yes, it would be an honor.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Anybody who would like to speak on Catherine's behalf to second the nomination, or she could speak on her own behalf as well? Yes, Ali?
I don't know why my unmute is misbehaving all of a sudden. Yes, I've known Toastmaster Catherine Aruyaru, even before she became Aruyaru. And she has really been the epitome of suave leadership, both in thicker. And finally, when she disappeared a little bit, I went out looking for her, and I knew she would be a fantastic addition to our club. And at that time, she was also ready to come back, I think, after handling some Riaru assignments out there, which sometimes manifest. So we are really, really honored to have Catherine Ochako Ariaru with us, and I'm certain that she will be a fantastic SAA for this club and help us to soar, just as also she does in her career for those of us who care to follow. Endorsed.
Thank you so much, Ali, for that endorsement. At this point in time, I would now like to close the nominations for the position of the club sergeant at arms. Are there any objections to this? There being no objections, I declare the nominations for the position of club sergeant at arms to be closed. And Catherine Ochako being Catherine Bosibori Ruyaru being the only candidate nominated to this position, I duly declare that she has been elected as the club sergeant at arms. Thank you so much, everyone. And now to go over the offices of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club for the year 2026-2027. Club President, we have DTM, Dr. Kevin Rubia. Club President Education, Fatma Amio. Club President Membership, Kevin Kimbio. Club President Public Relations, Sarah Wanjiku. Club Secretary, DTM Mineh Maina. Club Treasurer, DTM Maggy Waithiru. And Club Sergeant at Arms, Catherine Bosibori Yaru. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much for stepping up to serve our Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. I would now like to give an opportunity for the president-elect to please say a few words.
Thank you, Robert Karanja DTM. It has been an honor serving under you as our president, and I am happy to take the mantle from you with the support of the duly elected members and members of Watabaruku and friends of Watabaruku. We need your support to make this club great as it has always been. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. We really do wish you all the best. We're going to be here to support you throughout the coming year, and we can't wait to see what Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club is able to do in the coming year. And with that, I would now like to bring the club elections to a close. I declare that process closed. And also, I would, at this point in time, I would also like to adjourn the meeting of our Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. Looking forward to seeing each and every one of you during our next meeting on the 22nd of May. Wishing Dr. Kevin Rubia all the best in Kigali as he goes to represent his in the evaluation contest. Good luck, and we wish you all the best. We hope that you take the trophy, and we are going to have the installation of the officers during the last meeting of June. So let us all plan to attend that meeting where we are going to have a handover. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Hope you have an amazing evening. Hope you have a great weekend ahead. Goodbye and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Hope to see all of you in Kigali.
Good night.
Oh, yes.
Bye-bye. Safe journey is back.
Alio, you should be in a campaign team. You know how to.
I know how to campaign vigorously.
Tua nyoka pangoni.
Asanteni sana.
Mistari kama zebra.
That was fantastic. Sarah, did you help me when I was thrown out?
Sorry?
Did you help with the timing for the final part after I was thrown out?
So the G was aware about this, so he didn't take long. It was the only part remaining. So before I looked for the cards, he was done.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So everything has gone well.
Awesome, awesome. Let me share with you.
Okay.
Then you can flight it in the group.
Okay.
With the necessary reductions.
Sawa, sawa.
Reduction. So you'll find it in your email. Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night.